everybody. Welcome to this live stream titled Ways to Conquer Overthinking and Anxiety. My name is Julie Savarino. I'm the host for today. But the most important person here is, who I'm absolutely thrilled to be here, is Deb Grayson Riegel. Deb is the author of this outstanding book titled Overcoming Overthinking 36 Ways to Tame Anxiety at Work, School, and Life. Now, if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It's just an excellent book. I'm absolutely thrilled that you're here, Deb, and I want to thank you so much for coming.
I'm really excited to be having a conversation with you today. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, thank you. Okay, so I want to quickly just give you some of Deb's incredibly impressive credentials. In addition to this excellent book, she's also written 3 other books. I mean, I've only written 3 total, so writing 4 books is huge. She's a professor and teaches courses at some of the leading business schools in the whole country, actually in the whole world. She's taught leadership and communications, women in leadership at such major prestigious schools as Duke, Wharton, Columbia, and even in China at Peking University. Now, if that wasn't enough, she's also a contributor to the world renowned Harvard Business Review, and her work has been featured in Bloomberg, Business Week, Oprah Magazine, the New York Times, and Inc. Magazine. Now, in her day job, she actually is a consultant and speaker, and she's done that around the world for major corporations. And I'm just going to name drop again here: Amazon, BlackRock, Kraft Heinz, the United States Army. So, Deb, I want to say thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. That was both lovely and wildly uncomfortable.
Okay, I have 2 quick housekeeping items and we're going to dive right into it.
Great.
First, if you're on a laptop today and you want to submit a question to me or Deb, go ahead and look to the right side, upper right side of your computer, and you'll see a comment bar. Go ahead and type in a comment or a question. If you're on a laptop, I'm sorry, a mobile, look down on your device and you should see the speech bubble, and that's where you put in a comment or a question. Now, I want to quickly mention the second and super exciting housekeeping issue. We're actually going to be raffling off a free copy of this outstanding book to one person who's live on the stream today and who is wins this raffle. Let me show you how this raffle works. Okay, I hope you can see this in 1 second. Basically, all you need to do is look to the comment bar either on the upper right of a laptop or in the speech bubble on your mobile and type into the comment box the hashtag and the word calm, CALM. So it's hashtag calm. And it doesn't mean it has to be, it does not, it's not case sensitive. So you can do uppercase or lowercase. Hashtag calm. And then you're going to be automatically entered to win this incredible book. Okay, with that, I want to go ahead and just a minute, I'm going to unshare my screen. And I want to ask Deb the first question. So, Deb, we all know that overthinking and anxiety has this myriad of potential negative effects on our lives, right? Now, we just did that poll last week, and tons of people often or usually overthink, but many people don't even know they overthink or have anxiety. So, I'm wondering, what do you suggest for people? How can they figure out? If someone told me I had anxiety, I'd tell them to, what off. It's like, the point is, how do you figure this out as a private person?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that I want to do is normalize stress and anxiety, right? Every person, as far as I know, has some degree of stress, and I think that's an important thing to remember. That stress is what motivates us, right? So helpful stress helps us focus on our goals, helps us move forward, helps us stay motivated and engaged with what we're doing. What we're really talking about is when that stress or anxiety or worry starts to interfere in some way with our daily tasks, our sense of well being, our sense of our ability to engage in relationships and engage in hobbies. So if you're feeling stressed and it's not bothering you and it's not impeding the relationships around you, which I think is a really important point, then have at it. But if you start to recognize that it's actually starting to get in the way of what feels like healthy functioning for you, including your relationships, then it's time to take a look at it.
Excellent point. Okay, so in prep for this live, you told me that over 50% of people who struggle with either overthinking or anxiety usually never get help, and that's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people. Yeah, that's half the people. There is a huge amount of stigma everywhere in the world about asking for help. And in fact, my most recent book is called Go to Help, which is about how to get better at asking for and offering help. And we know that asking for help, admitting that you don't have everything going perfectly can be really hard for people. And one of the things that my co author, Sophie, and I found in our research is that this is really the case for people who are super successful in their work and lives. That there's a belief that if I admit that I need help, people will see me as not capable, not smart, not strong. And in fact, the research shows that starting at around age 7, we start to associate admitting that we need help with reputational costs. And my belief and my experience is that if you actually are wrestling with anxiety, stress, overwhelm, there are far greater reputational costs for not getting help than there are for getting help. And so I want to just normalize the stigma, and I also want to normalize asking for help. And asking for help doesn't have to be from a licensed mental health professional, although I'm a huge fan of licensed mental health professionals. Asking for help could be from a friend, a family member, or a colleague. And I'll just share one more thing that, according to NAMI, which is the National Alliance for Mental Illness, I think I got that right. If you're thinking about who you might share your anxiety or worry or stress with, they suggest somebody who meets two criteria. Number one, that there's somebody that you really trust. And number two, that there's somebody with emotional intelligence. So they're not somebody who, when you say that you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed, somebody who isn't going to say, oh, this too will pass, or, what doesn't kill you or makes you stronger, or it's all part of God's plan. They're not going to say those things to you. Those are the opposite of empathy. But somebody who would say, this does sound hard. I believe you. I'm here to support you. Thank you for confiding in me.
Yeah, I just had that happen the other day, whatever. Okay. So in your book, Go to Help, which I also read, you describe these emotional barriers that many people face that stops them from asking for help. Could you sort of elaborate on that, please?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think I touched on some of them just a moment ago, right? So we feel shame, we feel embarrassment. And one of the most common emotional barriers is the barrier of, I don't want to bother other people, right? Other people have problems too. Other people are experiencing anxiety, stress, overwhelm as well. And so I don't want to be a bother to other people. Now, in our workshops, we take people through an exercise where we ask them to imagine three people who would help them no matter what, like wouldn't even ask, what do you need help with? It could be anything from, yes, I would help you talk through a personal challenge to help you move a piano. I, of course, am too old to help anybody move a piano. I'm not risking my lower back to help anyone move a piano. But
Move
in
your
our
own piano.
workshops, right, we say imagine three people in your life who would help you no matter what. Now we want you to imagine that those three people found out that you needed help or wanted help and you didn't ask them. What would they say to you? And inevitably, people say, oh, they would say, I'm hurt. I'm confused. You have helped me so many times. It's an honor to be asked to help. I'm here for you. And so we make up a story in our heads that we're bothering other people, but those other people don't feel bothered by us. They feel honored, they feel respected, and they want to help. And I'll just point out one other thing, to point to the neuroscience of this. We have a reciprocity bias. And our reciprocity bias is, I want to give back to you what you have done for me. So if you've helped someone, they are looking for an opportunity to help you, and vice versa. So that could be a really good person to confide in, somebody who has just been waiting to return the favor.
So that is such super helpful. I want to ask you though, in your workshops, okay, let's go to the workplace because you know how your book addresses work life and career work life in school.
Yes.
Like in the workplace or at school, do you teach and instruct your students or your participants to do the same thing? Who are my three people at work I could confide in?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, and all of my workshops are in the workplace, right? Um, and so, yes, we ask people to think about three people, whether it's colleagues, friends, family members, but three people who they know would be, happy to help them. And every once in a while, we'll have somebody who say, "I can't picture that," and then that becomes an opportunity for a little bit of self-reflection, like what's going on in your relationship building, in your environment, or in your context that means that you can't ask for help. And we do a little bit of unpacking around that, but I would tell you that that is the exception rather than the rule, that people can't think of somebody who'd be willing to help them, or even just be an open ear and an open shoulder for them for a brief amount of time at work.
I think our collective anxiety over COVID was so striking that this has become now a much more talked about and, not denied topic. But I also know that a lot of people like fell into, I'm not saying it in any judgmental way. It's just a lot of people fell into excessive drinking, excessive eating. I mean, I
Sure.
always fall into that one. But my point is, talk about that, like the post COVID anxiety stress levels.
Yeah, so the mental health crisis was called the secondary pandemic, right? The first one was COVID, the secondary one was the mental health crisis. And I remember reading a study as I was, delivering workshops during COVID on how to talk about mental health in the workplace. And I remember reading a study that said 80% of managers had not asked their people, "Are you okay?" Just let that settle for a second. 80% of managers didn't ask their people, "Are you okay?" And, partially maybe because they weren't okay. And partially it may have been because, they were really overwhelmed. And a part of it might have been like, if my people are not okay, I'm not even sure what to do, which is certainly something that I can help with. But post COVID, we are still experiencing a collective trauma from what we've all experienced. We still know that there are far greater mental health needs than there are mental health practitioners. One of the other things that came to light during COVID, other than this mental health crisis, was, a crisis around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And we know that it is often hard for people of color to find a mental health practitioner that looks like them. And so when you want to talk, if you're willing to talk about what's going on inside your heart, inside your head, it's often the case that you want to find somebody that you can relate to on a level around identity, and the numbers just aren't there, or the access just isn't there, which adds, to another level of this crisis. And that's part of the reason why I think everybody in the workplace should be able to talk about mental health and mental well-being. That doesn't mean that everybody in the workplace needs to talk about mental illness, but you do need to understand that everybody has mental well-being, and some days it's going well and some days it isn't. And considering how much time we spend at work, if people can't and won't talk about it, it compounds the problem.
Right. In the legal industry, we have a pronounced mental health issue. But let me stop for a second because
Yeah.
first I want to say hi to some of our participants. Thank you, Wendy, for coming. Ruth, Becky, Pamela, I will love it that you're here. I did want to mention to Wendy. Wendy wrote because she wants to get the book, the free book. Wendy, here's the deal though. You have to put hashtag calm, not just the word calm. I do not want to cheat you out of the opportunity to win. Okay, so let's get into some more specifics.
Yeah.
So in your book, in this book again, you write about this learning your launch sequence.
Yes.
Learning your launch sequence. Can you talk about that, please?
Absolutely. So, learning your launch sequence is about checking in with your body and your brain to know what is likely to set you off. So, for example, for me, I don't always know intellectually that I'm getting ready to experience anxiety. But I do know it if I'm willing to check in with this part of my body. So, right here, when I am experiencing anxiety, I feel like there is a ball stuck in my throat. Like my dog Nash and I were playing fetch, and she tossed it and it went down my throat and it's stuck here. So,
Oops.
even before it has registered in my brain, I have a feeling that registers right here in my throat. As soon as I recognize this is in my throat, then I start to associate that with, oh, I'm feeling anxious. And as soon as I start to associate I'm feeling anxious, then my thoughts start to launch. Why am I anxious? What's wrong? What's wrong with me? How long is this going to last? Is there anybody who can help me with this? And then my special brand, not unique to me, but my special brand is catastrophizing. So then I catastrophize both about what's going on in my life as well as catastrophizing about the anxiety. And for anybody here who is wondering if they're a catastrophizer, catastrophizing has three distinct parts. Number one, it means that you overestimate the likelihood of unlikely events. Number two, it means that you overestimate how devastating those events would be if they happened. And number three, it means that you've underestimated the resources you would have available to help you if something should happen. So that's where my brain goes. My brain starts to overestimate unlikely events, overestimate how devastating they would be, and forget the fact that I have a million resources available to me. So, learn your launch sequence is recognizing where in your body is the very first signal that you are experiencing stress or anxiety, and recognizing it before it starts to take over your brain. And then having some strategies, of which there are many in the book, having some strategies to change some of your self talk, and some strategies to keep you from catastrophizing, to keep you from blaming yourself, to keep you from ruminating, or whatever your version of anxiety is. But you want to recognize where it's launching from. This is my launch pad.
That's just outstanding. That's so helpful to me, and I really appreciate it. Can I ask you though? I've read before in the past that really we as women tend to over worry and over catastrophize more so than men. Is that true?
Uh, I don't have research for it. I would say anecdotally, it sounds true, but I don't know that that makes it true.
Okay. Then
Yeah.
my next question is again in your great book. I want you described the all in caps H period A period L period T, the halt technique. Could you talk
Yes.
through that, please?
Yes. So, a halt technique, which I definitely didn't invent, but I definitely use it every day, is when I start to feel myself feeling not like myself, right? My regular self is upbeat and enthusiastic and pretty joyful. And when I recognize that I'm not feeling like me, I want to halt. And that acronym stands for hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And it is often the case that when I start to feel a little bit uncomfortable, ornery, shaky, it is likely one of those things. I am hungry, I am angry, and sometimes I'm just hangry. I'm angry for not having eaten. I am feeling lonely, in which case it's not about having a snack or seeing what's triggering my anger. I actually just need to connect with somebody, whether by text or Facebook or in person. And then tired, do I need a nap? And sometimes tired for me isn't taking a nap, it's going for a walk. It's actually energizing myself rather than resting, which is something that I'm always working to make that distinction. But when you are feeling not quite yourself, halt before you do anything and ask yourself, am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Or am I tired? And then go do something about it.
Super helpful. Okay. Let's switch over to the workplace in
Yeah.
specific because a lot of people on LinkedIn are, logged in from work.
Yes.
There's a couple articles you've written, one in Inc. magazine, one in Harvard Business Review. You talk about in those two articles, you talk about not everyone wants to talk about their emotions at work,
Yeah.
number one, and secondly, how to if how to ask for what you need at work. Could you talk about those two things, please?
Sure, happy to. So, not everybody wants to talk about their emotions at work is a subset of not everybody wants to talk about their emotions, period, right? This is something that I have learned to do personally and professionally because it allows me, number one, to ask for the help that I need, and number two, to model it for other people, including the people who live in my house. And there are plenty of people who want to keep their private life, including their private emotions, separate from what they do at work. That being said, there is no firewall, right? You don't not have emotions at work and only have emotions in your personal life. We know this to be true, but not everybody wants to talk about it. So you can't make people talk about it. What you can talk about with people is the impact they're having. So Julie, if we were colleagues, I might want to ask you about the fact that you seem, frustrated or embarrassed, or overwhelmed or disheartened, and you may not want to talk about that, which you're entitled to, but I still get to talk about the impact that has if I'm your coworker, right? So you get to feel however you feel, but let me tell you that however you're feeling that you don't want to talk about, I feel left out of a conversation. I feel like I'm in trouble. I feel ignored, right? So I get to talk about the impact that has. The other point that I want to make is that we have to recognize that we work in incredibly culturally diverse organizations. And there are people and there are cultures, right? Probably the majority of cultures out there where you do not talk about personal things in the workplace. It would be seen as a sense of shame, right? A source of shame. It would be seen as, potentially violating some family norms. And so we have to be mindful that people bring a whole lifetime and a whole culture with them of wanting or not wanting to talk about their feelings and their emotions at work, and that's okay. The second question that you asked was about, nope, it's gone. You got to remind me.
It is about uh, how to ask for what you need at work.
Yeah. And so when you ask for what you need from work, you want to put it in the context of what's called a positive request, right? So
Say
as
again,
opposed
positive
a
what?
positive request,
Thank
right?
you.
So as opposed to a complaint, right? I'm not getting imagine a scenario in which your supervisor cancels, repeated one-on-one meetings. You could complain and say, you keep canceling our one-on-one meetings. Or you could make a positive request, which is something about, I've noticed that you've canceled the last 3 one-on-one meetings. Without these meetings, I feel like I'm not really clear on my priorities. I would really appreciate it if we could keep the next meetings on the calendar or find another time that works better for both of us so that we can keep a steady pace of these meetings. So asking for what you want rather than complaining about what you don't want, and including that impact, right? The impact of not having these meetings is I'm not sure what my priorities are, and I want to be.
Excellent information. Okay, so let's talk about those on the call who work with a team. Let's say
Yep.
I have an assistant, I have a manager, and I have a coordinator, and they all report to me.
Yep.
What, please talk to them. Like, what should they do? What kind of conversation should they have with their staff? You know, how should they say you can come to me anytime? And then also, what do they do when someone does come and ask for help?
Yeah, excellent. So I think there are a few conversations that everybody needs to have no matter what. One conversation that everybody needs to have is a conversation of we're going to be giving each other feedback. How do you like to get feedback? And what's the best way for me to come to you with feedback? And that's a baseline conversation because a lot of the time conversations about emotions and mental well-being are really feedback conversations because you notice somebody might be underperforming or showing up interpersonally in a way that's having an impact on you. So have a feedback conversation early and often, a feedback about feedback conversation. A second conversation that I believe people should have with each other before there's a problem is, what should I do to get your attention about something that feels important to me if other methods haven't worked? And I'm going to just say that again because that was a lot of words. What can I do to get your attention about something that feels important to me if other methods haven't worked? So you're basically asking for an instruction guide and a permission slip to get somebody's attention the way they say you can, because I might want to talk to you about the fact that I'm feeling overwhelmed and it may not feel important to you, or you may be dealing with your own stuff. So I need to know in advance, how do I get your attention? Do I send you 10 emails? Do I show up at your door with a pizza and flowers, right? What is it that I need to do? And then, of course, there is the conversation, which is the invitation of we are not all going to be at 100% all of the time. That includes me as well. If there is something going on for you, I would like you to consider me a safe person to share with, and I would like to be a partner with you in helping you plan how you can handle difficult times. So the more you share with me, the more I can be helpful to you. And if there's something I can't help with, I promise to let you know, but don't assume that I can't or won't.
Okay, now I just have to say that that takes huge amounts of self awareness and huge amounts of maturity emotionally. And I find I would be shocked. I've never had anyone say that to me where I've worked, and
Yeah.
I think it's fabulous. But so if there's something going on with you, consider me. I would like you to consider me to be a safe person for you to talk to, and I'd
Yeah.
like to help you get you through that. Yeah, on the in the chats, please show us if anyone's ever had that or ever heard that.
And I'm
I would
trying
be
to
shocked.
raise the bar on these conversations. I can tell you that I had a manager who said some version of that to me. And it is something that I say to my kids. I've said to my kids throughout their whole lives. And I don't think it's something that should be said once. I think it's something that should be said again and again. And if you are listening to this, whether you're listening to it live or recorded, do your team a favor, do your colleagues a favor, do your family a favor, and say that to them. If there's something going on, I'd like to be a safe person for you. I'd like to be somebody who can help. And I can't always promise that I can help, but I'd like to try.
Okay, that's going to be a post, and I'm going to do a LinkedIn snippet video on that. Hang on, quickly. I want to talk to Jill. Jill, thanks for being here. Jill said she missed the first half of the session. No question. The whole link to this entire thing will live on LinkedIn here in just a minute. I do have another question here from Janie and Janelle. I'm sorry, Janelle. Having a conversation about how to effectively receive, asking for the leaders. Strong takeaways from one point. Can't wait to read this book. Awesome. Okay, wait, we're almost running out of time because I'm just anal about keeping these at 30 minutes. You know what I'm going to do is share the screen and run the raffle, but I'm going to give everyone one last chance if they join late. If you want to win this book in literally 15 seconds, put a hashtag and the word calm into the comment bar. And I am going to go ahead and share my screen again. Devin, let's see who's going to win this bad boy. Okay, I thought I was no. Here we go. Okay, are we there? Can everyone see that? Let's draw it. Who's gonna win? Oh my goodness, who is it? Who is it? Who is it? I don't know. Boy, it's a lot of people. I've never Ruth, you won the book. Ruth, congratulations. How exciting. Oh my gosh. Okay, Ruth, just to let you know, I'm going to be in touch with you on LinkedIn very shortly, and I will mail you the book. I want to congratulate you very much. Now, before we wrap up, I have one more minute. There's some Janelle already typed up some takeaways. I'm going to type them up and put them on the post. Usually that's what I do. But in the meantime, I want to suggest two things to each of you. And that is, I would like to suggest that you reach out to Deb on LinkedIn, X, or Facebook. But more importantly, if you're having any type of firm meeting, company meeting, board meeting, and you need to get better at this, which we all do on ways to overcome overthinking and anxiety, please consider retaining her because she's just an outstanding and highly qualified speaker. Let's see. With that, I want to, on behalf of Deb, I want to say thank you all for coming. And Deborah, I can't thank you enough. You've helped
Thank
me
you.
tremendously, and I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Okay, bye, everybody. Thanks for coming.